Welcome back. And if you're stopping by for the first time, welcome to a space where we talk about finding joy, choosing peace, and living life with intentionality. Today, we're talking about grief and healing after a significant loss and rebuilding your life after losing someone you thought you'd grow old with. Widowhood is something that no one ever plans for. And for many of us, it happens far earlier than expected. Navigating new feelings of grief, finding your identity, and learning to live alone and allowing yourself to feel joy again can all be part of the journey. Today's conversation is about the reality of that journey, the pain, the resilience, and the strength it takes to move forward. Come with me.
It's the Don't Be a Miserable Cow podcast with your host, Lisa Marshall.
Today's guest is someone who truly understands what it means to rebuild a life you never expected to be living. Christy Kovel is the State Government Relations Director for the Alzheimer's Association Connecticut chapter. She's spent her entire career supporting older adults and holds a master's in human development and gerontology from the University of St. Joseph. Her story is deeply personal. Widowed at just 46 years old, Christy faced the heartbreak of losing her husband Tracy and the challenge of figuring out how to move forward. Over time, she not only did that for herself, but also created a community to support other younger widows walking in a similar path. I'm so grateful to be able to talk with Christy about her journey. I know this conversation is going to mean a lot to so many people. Hi, Christy.
Hello.
Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so glad to be here.
I'm really grateful that you're here because you're being very honest about something that's very tender. And our audience is going to resonate with that because death and grief don't discriminate. It affects everyone. Mm-hmm. And I really am so grateful for your wisdom and your honesty and the time that you're taking to be here today. So thank you.
I'm happy to be here.
We are both part of a club that we never wanted to be part of, or a community, I guess is a better word, the widows community. I'm part of that community because my husband Peter passed away when he was 56 from early onset Alzheimer's disease. And can you tell us a little bit about your husband, Tracy, and how you came to be part of the Widow Club and when?
So Tracy passed away. It's going to be actually 10 years in August in 2016. He was 46. I was 46 when I became a widow.
So young.
Very young. And I was his caregiver, in an intense period for a couple of years. He had a very rare form of testicular cancer that had metastasized. So we were dealing with cancer for about 10 years in our 20-year marriage, kind of on and off. You know, the last couple were the period of intensity. And it was... You know, when he passed away, I was relieved that he wasn't suffering because I was ready for the suffering to end, but nothing prepares you for the aftermath, even if you think you're prepared.
I say that all the time. I thought I knew, Alzheimer's is a little bit different because you know what the end game is. And you grieve along the way because cognitively your loved one is slipping away as his body is still alive. And I thought that I knew what grief was too, and I thought I was prepared, and I absolutely was not. What did, when you look back at those early days, what did grief feel like for you?
I felt just broken. I have a friend who described it, and this is accurate. It's like you're walking around in the world with one arm, but nobody knows it. You're just walking around and you are having this out-of-body experience all the time where you're going to the grocery store and your world is completely fallen apart, yet you're trying to figure out, do you need bananas? Do you need milk? A song comes on and the speaker that might remind you of the person. You're just in a constant fog. That was my experience anyway.
Yes, it's so true. And I feel the same way. That's a great example. Just forcing yourself to go out and do the daily things, but you've got this cloud, this surreal it's loneliness, but it's more aloneness.
Exactly.
You're so alone that you feel that no one can understand exactly what you're going through.
Exactly. And you and I share the fact that we were both young when this happened.
Right.
So when you're younger, it's actually, I think, a little more intense because well-meaning people will try to offer some positive suggestions to you about how you can move your life forward. And it doesn't really make you feel any better.
And you know what? Grief goes at its own pace, right? And for everybody, it's different. You can't go around it. You can't try to smooth it over. You can't shove it down. You've got to go through it at your own pace. How did it affect you physically?
It did.
How
it did.
so?
It took me such a long time to be able to get a good night's sleep. The sleep, I think, was the biggest impact. And I became this person who just struggled to have concentration, to do like simple things like writing a grocery list and then remembering to take the list with me to the store. I'm a very organized person. Yeah. So, I didn't feel like I was on top of any of that. And so going back to work was hard, right? To try to make sure. And then just, it takes so much energy, as you know, to sort of put on the game face when you're out in public because people are constantly asking you how you're doing and you can't walk around crying all the time. So,
and that's interesting. People are asking you how you're doing.
Yeah.
And depending on who it is and how you are actually doing, you're either honest or not. You're like, oh, I'm doing good. I'm coping, because you don't want to talk about it, or you unload and start crying, and all the things in between. Mm-hmm. So it is exhausting and very hard. Were there moments when you were just so overwhelmed that you felt paralyzed?
Often.
I
think you have moments where you start to think about your life and you start to think about the future, and that can just be so overwhelming.
Or how your future looks compared to how you thought it was going to look.
Exactly.
Being we are young widows, yes. And we were robbed of the future that we were dreaming of. So that has a huge impact on how we grieve as well.
I agree.
Right?
Yeah, I agree.
What surprised you most about grief or your grief?
I think they always say, like, don't make any big decisions the first year. And I think I thought after the year was done, I would feel miraculously better. And I didn't. And I don't believe the common express theme that the second year is harder than the first, because I don't like that sort of thing. Right. And I don't like that sort of setup. But there's a little more finality in that second year that you don't have the first year, because the first year is just, I just think of it as traumatic, and you're in this fog, and the fog lifts after that first year. So I do think for me, it was sort of that transition period. I sort of thought I would be better in the second year, better than I was.
Yeah, I think I just started running away from it and got so manic and just said yes to everything and just did everything to push it away. I've already been grieving. I'm fine. And that didn't do me any favors. What about milestones? Are there milestones that triggered you along the way? And how does that feel now, coming up on 10 years?
So interestingly enough, the milestones that people think about, right? The milestone of your partner or spouse's birthday, mm-hmm. Maybe it's a particular milestone around a diagnosis or some other type of event. Those you can have anticipatory grief around those, and you can be thinking about them and try to prepare for them. The one that actually surprised me the most, particularly that first year, was opening day of the Red Sox. Because Tracy was a big Red Sox fan. So I found myself, he passed away in August and opening day is in April. And I just kind of found myself unexpectedly in a mess at my desk at work. And I'm like, why am I? And then I put it all together that we had gone to opening day, a few years prior. And so that was like
It was
a little
just
bit of a surprise.
a trigger. Yeah. And I think grief does that to us often. It surprises us. We can be going along our day and then just something happens, a song, a scent, a memory. Somebody says something. And I know this happens to me. I will break down and cry. And, for me, it hasn't been 10 years. It's been 4, but I don't see that changing. I don't see that. It's kind of like an arrow for me that just shoots right to my heart very unexpectedly. And that's sort of where I am in the grief process now. I'm not grieving every single day. I don't feel that fog that we talked about, but I do still get that piercing pain sometimes. Do you ever get that?
Less so now. Once in a while. I think over time it becomes a little more of a dull ache, and now there's just a lot of fondness and a lot of love for the relationship I had with Tracy.
Yes.
So I think because of that, I'm not going to just say I'm better. It's just different.
It's different.
I carry it with me, but it's not as acute. And I've told that to other people too. Like, the acuteness of this will settle over time. And I can't tell you when that is, right? It's different for everybody.
It is, but I feel that too. I feel so grateful for the time that I had with Peter. And that's what I try to focus on most of the time. And I have a large following on Facebook and Instagram and, of people who are not yet widows, or maybe they're new widows, and they're so apologetic. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry for your loss. And I don't resonate with that right now. I resonate with, I'm so grateful for the time I got to spend with Peter. What was it like learning to live alone after 20 years of marriage?
That was hard.
Yeah.
So I met Tracy when I was 21, and we got married when I was 26. So I grew up with him. So we grew up together. So we did all of the things that you do when you get married and build a life together, right? We bought a house together, bought all the stuff for the house. We traveled, we both went back to graduate school, all those things.
Gosh.
So I think that was a really rough thing, because I was used to cooking for a partner, with a partner. Cooking was so hard. It got better after a while, but that was really hard. And then, candidly, Tracy took care of all the finances because I allowed that. I was really fine. He was better at it. So I had to learn how to, budget and run a household by myself, which I had never done. And, YouTube became my best friend when the bathtub drain backed up. I was like, how does this even, so some small things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Same for me. I forgot about that cooking piece, because you go from cooking for 2 to cooking for 1. And sometimes I felt, I'm just not going to cook.
Right.
That
can be liberating though. I've now learned to embrace it, and it became a little bit of a point of humor, because Tracy was not a frozen dinner kind of guy. And in the earlier years, once in a while I would have one, and I just would sort of look up and say, I know you don't approve, but this is my life now. You took off.
That's great. Great. I joke because my dinners became cheese and crackers. It was a lot easier to just grab some cheese and crackers and go in front of the TV with a glass of wine, which that was certainly my nemesis after Peter died. Too much wine. So I'm glad we're settling out in that respect. How did you navigate? This was the hardest part for me. How did you navigate the silence of the house?
Like you, because you mentioned that you were sort of manic and said yes to everything.
Yeah.
Really, that first year and even the first couple of years, I traveled. I said yes to all kinds of invitations to dinner. I went to yoga a few times a week. I went to go see girlfriends and friends I hadn't seen. So I was out a lot because I didn't like the silence at the house.
Yeah.
I overbooked myself and I overscheduled myself. And I look back and I realized that was my coping mechanism. Yep. Some people have a little paralysis and they can't leave their house, or they don't want to get out of bed. Yes. But I was like the opposite. I was like, just running in the same way.
Yeah.
Because I didn't like the silence. And, I tried to fill the house, wouldn't have people over, and do all of those things. But then over time, that took a long time to learn to appreciate being by myself and appreciate quiet moments. And then really start to get to know myself as a person without a partner, which, as you know, that takes a while.
It does. How do you think that transition happened from loneliness to peacefulness of being alone in your house?
Well, candidly, I actually moved after 2 years. So I made the decision to sell the house, and I moved into a different space. So the space and the moving for me was the most healing because it became my own space. I was not moving into a space that I had spent 20 years in.
Right. That makes
married.
sense. Yeah.
So I was able to decorate it the way I wanted. I was able to create a lifestyle and lifestyle patterns that worked for me now, not when I was a married person.
Yeah.
So that kind of was the biggest, I think, catalyst for healing for me was moving.
It is different. You say being a married person. It's different not being a married person. And did that affect your friend groups at all? Or the people that you hung out with who were couples and you and Tracy were friends with?
So in some cases, there were folks, who we fell out of touch with, and they were primarily his friends who had spouses. Most of my inner circle friends, and it's a collection of people who are single or married, I've stayed connected with. And I really never felt the sort of third wheel awkwardness, because they were so inclusive and so loving and kind. So there were times maybe I didn't feel like joining them, but at the same time, the invitations did keep coming. I had branched out and I did form some bonds with other widows, around when I started to date and things like that. Yeah. And so I found myself sharing a little bit more with my female friends who are sort of doing that with me. But that doesn't mean to say that my folks who are married or partnered, think any less of me. We just have to sort of come to an agreement that we're in different places in our life.
Right. And you all have in common that you all love Tracy.
Right.
And so there's, talking about him and reminiscing about him, I'm sure is comforting.
It is. It is comforting. And I also think too, when someone does lose their significant other, sometimes the grief for the friend is like overwhelming. So it might be too much to see you. And it's sort of like I try to explain to people when they've asked, I'm like, you have to remember they're grieving too. And it might be that you remind them of the relationship that they don't have either.
Yes. And in that same vein, I think people don't know what to say to someone who's grieving, or they may be a little hesitant to talk about the person that's gone. How do you feel about that? What would you say to somebody who's in those shoes, a friend of yours who doesn't know what to say or doesn't know if it's okay to talk about Tracy?
First of all, it always is okay to talk about Tracy. So, no one's going to give me a reminder that he's gone. I know that, right? Anyone that's lost their person knows they're gone.
Yes.
It's important to bring them up. It's important to just sort of ask for permission. Like, I remember this great thing about Tracy. Are you okay with me sharing?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And then when people say they don't know what to say, some of the people in my life who came forward and just said, I don't know what to say, but I'm here. Like, no one does really know what to say. It's awkward and it's messy. And it's like, no one has to have the perfect thing to say.
That's right.
You just need to show up.
And I think when we talk about our loved ones who are gone, it kind of breaks the ice and allows them to do the same thing. Shortly after Peter died, somebody came to me and told me a story about Peter from his college days that I didn't know. I didn't know the story.
Oh, that's amazing.
The person that you know that you know best in the world, and you didn't know something about them. And so I started asking people, and it was really healing for me to hear stories about Peter that I didn't know. It helped me to understand and know him even greater after his death. It was really special to me.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful. I have bumped into people in Tracy's circle. He worked for a nonprofit and I do lobbying. So I see people in the Capitol, and I have heard stories from people that had worked with him or knew him in some different capacity. And it is always, really terrific and validating and loving to hear those stories.
It is. How did you feel when you could no longer identify as a wife It's a two-part question. That's part one. Part two is, do you remember the moment that you realized that you were now a widow? And was there forethought, like, oh, I'm going to be a widow? Or was it just shocking? Oh my God, I'm a widow.
I actually do. I remember the exact moment.
Me too.
So, I'm a lobbyist, right? So,
tell us more about that.
Yes. So, I'm the state government relations director for the Alzheimer's Association. And so they're lobbyists. So I work at the Capitol a lot, and I wasn't at the Alzheimer's Association when Tracy died. I was working for the legislature as a policy analyst. And I was talking to a legislator who said to me, oh, I'm having this great event in my district this weekend. You should come with your husband. And he said that because I was still wearing my ring and it was October and he had passed away in August. And it was at that moment that I said,
chills.
I didn't say anything to him. I just, thanked him for the invitation, and I went home that night and I took off my rings because I realized that I didn't want to go through life like that. And again, people have their own timeline. Some people keep their rings on forever.
Yeah.
Some people take them off right away. I just realized I was wearing a piece of jewelry that identified me as a wife, and I needed to step into a different forward facing kind of a role.
Right.
And so it was that.
I remember it was almost immediately after Peter died, moments that it hit me that I was a widow. Just the word is so haunting and daunting. And it was difficult for me to identify, like, oh my God, I'm no longer a wife. I'm no longer a caregiver. I'm a widow. It was all this new identity that I had to kind of learn to embrace. Who are you now that you may not have recognized in the beginning of grief?
I think I'm a really strong person who reinvented themselves in a pile of rubble.
Yes. Did you find that you had to I found that through caregiving, I lost my identity and became caregiver mostly. Of course, I was still a mom and I was still a wife and all of these things, but it changed me. And so when that part of my life was over and Peter died, I had to look and say to myself, okay, what did I used to do before? And do I still like doing that? And maybe it's not serving me anymore. And are there things that I would like to do differently now? And do I want to, check out some new hobbies? Did you find yourself doing that?
I did. And I think, I think you and I were both caregivers, right? And that whole caregiver identity, it takes a while, and there's a different even sense of loss and trauma around like being a caregiver and then trying to figure out when you're not a caregiver, what that looks like. But it took a while, because I was married a long time, like you were. And so I had to think about what do I even like to do? And
yes.
What does that even look like? So it took some time. And to be honest with you, I think I'm still evolving. I actually was sharing with somebody that I want to take golf lessons this spring.
Oh my God, that's exciting.
And Tracy was a huge golfer and I never liked it. I went to the driving range with him once or twice and I was like, but
Same.
I've gotten older and now I'm sort of ready to take golf lessons. So but this is on my own, this is my own terms. And I sort of feel like if Tracy were to see me now, you might not recognize me. That's the other piece of this, but that's okay. I do think you completely come into a different identity when you lose your person. And it takes a while. And I think people need to embrace, who you become because it's actually quite beautiful.
It really is beautiful. I think you blossom and you become independent. Would you say that you're stronger?
Much.
Yes. Yes. I feel as though Peter and I were a unit, and I say this often, and he would do some of the stuff and I would do some of the stuff and I would lean on him and he would lean on me, and that piece was gone. And I feel more of my own whole unit, more like my own whole unit now, much more independent. I've always been a strong person, but much stronger. Did you go through that metamorphosis?
I actually feel now things don't rattle me like they used to because I've had to do everything on my own for a number of years. And along the way, right, you have other losses that come up, or a family situation or a household situation. And you just get stronger and stronger with each thing you're facing.
Yes. And not to be cliche, but I know that I don't sweat the small stuff nearly as much. And I'm much more grateful, and I'm much more present in my relationships.
I am too.
Yeah.
I am too. I don't worry about small things that I used to worry about, because I don't know, when you may feel the same way, but when you've gone through the worst possible thing that anyone can ever go through, you realize it puts everything else in perspective.
It really does. There's not much that matters. There's not much else that matters. It's I don't care.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Pretty much the worst thing has happened. So,
That's
okay.
Right. Okay. I'm going to be good from here.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
what helped you begin to steady yourself emotionally?
I think I really focused on developing a really strong personal self-care practice.
Oh, tell me about that.
So I had gone to yoga and was practicing yoga when Tracy was, alive. Mm-hmm. Stepped way away from it when he was sick because I couldn't get to the studio or any of it. And so I started doing it at home after he died. And I joined an app, and I made a little studio in my house, and I sort of started creating a new routine for myself in the morning. So it's kind of become like a non-negotiable for me, and it's evolved over the years, but I really take like a half hour every morning, and I do a little bit of reading. I do a little bit of movement. I have a cup of coffee. Like, I don't look at my phone in the morning until I actually take time for just waking up and doing things that sort of tend to my body and my mind. And so I think that sort of grew out of this, and it became something that sort of nourished me because it needed to immediately, because I needed to sort of fuel up to deal with things in the earlier days. But now it's evolved to something that just is a part of who I am.
So what did you feel that you needed most from others? Friends, the community?
So I would just tell people in my life, I still want the invitations to go out to dinner. I still want, you to reach out. I still want to initiate activities with you. And even some of Tracy's closest friends, even if they were a couple, I think once they saw that I was okay just joining them for dinner, even though Tracy wasn't with me, I've developed really close friendships with some of his friends on my own, which is kind of nice. And it's new, and it's not new anymore, but it was new, and it's different.
Right.
But it's a different path.
And if people are afraid to ask someone who is grieving to go out to dinner or to do something, I think that they need to ask, because it's not their job to make the decision.
Right.
It's the person who's grieving. Let them make the decision, right? Whether they're ready to go, whether they want to go on that particular day, depending on where they are in their grief.
It is. And I think you would probably feel this way, when people have said, what can you do for somebody who's really in the early stages of grieving? What could I do?
Yeah.
And the thing that you can do is to do something, but make the decision up to them, right? I'm going to leave some groceries on your stoop. You don't need to pay me for them. Or, you know what? I'm going to take care of mowing your lawn this weekend. Hope that's okay. Or, that kind of thing.
Yes.
Like leaving you a Starbucks gift card, in your mailbox, or calling somebody to go out for coffee. And then if they say no, or inviting them to a holiday party and say, you might not feel up to it that day. So if you end up having to cancel, totally fine.
Just giving them complete permission.
Yes.
This is a gift. It is. And, it's unconditional. Completely and totally unconditional. Mm-hmm. What about the community and support groups and things like that? How did you find it different because of your age? A lot of times support groups are for an older community when we're talking about grief.
I found it challenging.
Yeah.
So I went to a couple of support groups, and the age was they weren't my people, and they were loving. And did you find the same thing?
I just felt alienated.
Yeah. It didn't make me feel any better. So I ended up approaching Middlesex Health, and I said, there's got to be something out there for folks in my age bracket.
Yes.
And we did a couple of seminars together, and I would speak, and people were coming out of the woodwork to come, and Middlesex ended up forming a support group for young widows back in 2018.
Nice.
And I was, in the wonderful position to be able to facilitate it. They asked me to facilitate it for a number of years. And
Perfect. You're perfect for that.
it was a wonderful experience, and I'm transitioning out, and somebody in that group is going to continue it. And it really does serve. People in the group have been so kind, saying this is such a valid resource for me because people feel seen and heard by their peers.
How long did you facilitate it?
4 years.
Are most of the participants in the same age group, or does it run the gamut?
Mostly, I would say 40s and 50s. Sometimes we have gotten some younger people, and sometimes maybe a little bit older, but I'll say the age cutoff suggestion is 65. It's usually we like people to still be working.
Right.
But everybody is very, very supportive of each other. And in most cases, there have been some sudden loss, but a lot of it was caregiving situation, right?
Yeah.
It could have been a cancer, or maybe it was also something sudden like a car accident or heart attack.
And the nuances are different.
They are.
You're still working. We still have a career. There may be young children involved. There's so many differences when you're a young widow than when you're in your golden years or you're retired. Not that it's any easier. It's just different.
Just different.
So being supported by a community of people who are going through the same thing, I feel really matters. So bravo to you that that you facilitated that, encouraged that to become, a group and a community, and it's grown.
It has grown. Yeah. We have anywhere from like 5 to 10 people each time, which is just amazing, right?
Fantastic.
And it's really, there's not a lot of options out there, although I really think that it's changing. I think more people have been more vocal on social media if they've had partner loss at a young age. So I've seen it change for the better in terms of it's not so stigmatized as it was 10 years ago.
And that's the thing too. People are afraid to show their grief. But you're not going to get support if you don't talk about it. The more you talk about it, the more people will realize that you need the support. And not only that, but you're teaching other people to speak about their grief as well so that they can get the support that they need. Did you ever feel guilty for being happy after Tracy died?
I didn't. I know a lot of people have that, and I haven't.
I haven't either.
I just haven't. I feel like I have earned my happiness, and he really made every effort to do everything possible before he died. So I don't feel guilty, and he wouldn't want me to feel.
That's what I hold on to too. Peter wouldn't want me to be sad or upset for one single second, and I hold on to that. And life is to be lived, and we are young, and we have a lot of life ahead of us to live. And we are setting a good example for other people. You don't need to be a miserable cow and stay miserable, right?
Right. And life is, it is about the life ahead of you. So we all deserve to have a beautiful life ahead of us.
Was it natural for you, or was there a moment that you just felt like, oh, it's okay for me to feel joy again?
Yeah, it was. And it was a few months after I went to Washington, D.C. in that November, and my very best for fun.
Okay.
And my very best friend got me tickets to go see the Pet Shop Boys. And I remember going to this concert, and I had this moment again. It was a small moment where I was like, I shouldn't be at this. And once the music started, there was so much joy and singing and dancing. And I was with my best friend from high school, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be okay. And now there's been moments over the years that I haven't been okay, but it's like all of a sudden I was just like, life is it's meant to be lived.
Yeah.
And you're meant to experience joy.
What does joy look like for you now? I have so many questions, but let's start with that one.
I think joy looks like loving relationships. It looks like me being able to take care of myself, and joy looks like me being able to have hobbies that I enjoy and relationships that nurture me, and being able to travel and all kinds of things. I mean, it looks different every day.
Yeah. What strength did you discover in yourself that you didn't know you had?
I have developed a strength that I've been able to, I guess I'll say, bounce back if I've hit a setback, if I've hit a roadblock, if I've, things have happened since Tracy has died. I've gotten into 2 car accidents, not my fault.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Your shoulder.
I broke my shoulder last summer. And and I had a couple days where I felt completely sorry for myself, but I did bounce back.
You're allowed to have a pity party.
Of course. And I had one, and it was a few days. But at the same time, my ability to bounce back is stronger than it was, much stronger.
Yeah, I feel that too. I guess I didn't realize it, but that resilience.
Mm-hmm. You're still going to feel terrible when something bad happens because bad things will continue to happen. But at the same time, you realize everything is temporary.
Everything is temporary.
Right.
And even if you're angry with someone, I feel like I don't want to drag it out. I don't want to argue forever. I want to say what I have to say and move on because we have this much time on this planet. Life is just so darn short that I just want to be present, and I don't want to spend any time in any negative, space or energy.
I agree.
What would the woman you were 10 years ago be surprised by?
How strong I am. Just,
holy cow, look at me now.
Yeah. Look what happened and look where I am
and
now.
You lived through it.
I lived through it.
I think about that a lot. Oh my God.
Yeah, because you had this intense caregiving experience and you chose to be so brave,
You too.
But just sharing Peter's story very publicly and then, also experiencing and moving yourself forward in just such a strong way.
You touched on a word that I sometimes use, and that is right after our spouse's deaths, you realize that you've been through a trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was a trauma. I remember feeling like I wanted to go to the hospital. I just wanted somebody to just take care of me. I felt like I needed to be hooked up to IVs and taken care of. And obviously I didn't need that, but psychologically I wanted to get into I wanted an ambulance to come and take me away to the hospital.
You don't feel right.
You just don't. You just don't. It's very traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
And unless you've been through a situation like this, I don't think people really understand it. So when you find your people, your support group of people who do understand it, it does make you feel heard and seen. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very healing.
It is. And I think people should remember that grief manifests itself in your body, which is why you end up with brain fog and sleeplessness and weird eating patterns and maybe excessive or not so excessive drinking, all kinds of things.
I had that.
People are using different strategies to cope with pain that they can't take a pill to fix.
Yes, it's true. And it's just the only thing that's going to heal you is time.
I know.
It really is time.
I know.
And that doesn't sound very comforting, but it's true.
It is. And nobody wants to hear that because we're such an instantaneous society. And we think you've had your 3 days of bereavement. You should be all set. Well, you're not all set.
And here's the other thing. There's no textbook. There's no should. There's no follow these instructions. Some people hold on to clothing and personal items forever. Mm-hmm. Some people get rid of them immediately. Both are right.
Exactly.
Neither is wrong.
Exactly.
No matter how you deal with your grief, it is right.
It is. And
you can't let anybody tell you what to do or how to do it because it's how you feel personally.
Right. And every person's journey is very, very different. So I have friends that have their spouse's wedding picture up and their marriage certificate and they're still in the same house.
Yep.
I chose to move. Both of us have processed just fine.
Exactly. If Tracy could see the way you're living your life now, what would he think?
I think he'd be proud of me.
Yeah.
I think he'd be really proud of me.
Yeah.
I think he would. I think he would be surprised maybe at some of the decisions I've made, and maybe he would chuckle at the manner in which I do some things,
and golf.
Yeah, and golf. I know. And then I also, while I don't enjoy them a lot, but I like IPAs, and he loved IPA beers. And once in a while I'll have them, and I thought they were awful. You know? And so I sort of developed a taste for them like a few years ago.
Funny.
I know. It's so weird.
It's
like,
so
why
weird.
Why do I have these delayed
You're
things?
manifesting into Tracy with IPAs and golf. And do you still go to baseball games?
Once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't really initiate it, but I will go to a Red Sox game every so often. And there is that sort of nostalgia. But I like it for me now. And I don't know if you found that to be the case. Like if you had a hobby with Peter that you like now, it's different. It's now on your own terms and you like it maybe in a different way because you have to develop the relationship with the hobby based on who you are now.
Yeah. Yeah. And we certainly do change. That's for sure. Is there anything we didn't touch on that you want to tell anyone, someone who is a friend of someone who's grieving or somebody who's grieving?
Find your people and really be kind to yourself and know that grief takes a long time. It's complicated. Seek out whatever you need to, whether that's a support group, books. There is a lot of really good stuff on social media, people that have great accounts. Communicate what you need. And that is what I say, like, first and foremost to people is like, tell somebody what you need. And if you don't know what you need, just tell them to stay in touch with you.
Yes.
So,
check on me. Just check on me.
Just check on me.
And, I would go a step further, and that is to, it's one thing to align yourself with a community of people who are supportive, but also steer clear of those who are commiserating and or want to commiserate with you, and just stay in a negative space and try not to get pulled down into people who can't get the help that they need, and maybe try to help them. I always find that helping somebody else lifts me up.
It does.
Yeah.
It does. It actually takes you out of your head because you're trying to process your own loss. And I actually did a little bit of volunteer work at various points in my early grief, and it felt really good just to get out of my head for a while.
Yes. Yeah. And I volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association, as you know, and that always feels good, and I love speaking to caregivers too. If I can share one little tip or trick that I learned along my journey and it helps you to reduce stress, I love that. That's just purposeful and meaningful to me. And I think that's just beautiful, a beautiful way of healing too. And thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. And I know this conversation is going to be meaningful to many people, whether they've lost a spouse or anyone that they love. So thank you so much for being here.
So grateful. Thank you.
If someone you care about could use this reminder today, share this episode with them. And now I have a question for you. How did you find joy after loss? We love hearing from you. So please go to our website, joywithlisa.com, and tell us all about it. And remember, we all have a choice. Choose peace, choose joy, and don't be a miserable cow. See you next time. Bye.
Thanks for spending this time with us on the Don't Be a Miserable Cow podcast with your host, Lisa Marshall. If you're looking for a little more guidance or encouragement, you can find Lisa's books, Find Joy, No Regrets, and Oh, Hello, Alzheimer's. And if you'd like to support the show or learn more about Lisa and her guests, visit us at joywithlisa.com.